Do you know people who say the wrong thing at the wrong time? And maybe they tell a joke and the room gets quiet. Or maybe you're good with people and you read people and read the room easily. Or maybe you're the one who says the wrong thing at the wrong time. Chances are you think you're super great with people or not so great with people. Either way, I want to ask you to take a journey with me. Imagine you are watching a basketball game and you are asked to count the number of passes. What would you do? Would you be able to focus on the passes and continue to count? As you can imagine, it would be pretty chaotic. You'd have to keep track of the ball, where it goes, and you might even lose track of who's winning, who's losing. Now imagine someone lets loose monkeys in the middle of the basketball game. What would you do? Would you be able to continue to count the passes, or would you get lost in what you were asked to do? I know people who would be able to continue counting the passes. Not me. I would become obsessed with the monkeys. Passes? What passes? Is there a basketball game going on here? What is even happening? What about you? Do you consider yourself a good noticer? Someone who reads the room? Someone who observes? Someone who would for sure continue to count those passes and forget about the monkeys? I know. Some of you are thinking, I got this. This is not me. I would be able to continue counting the passes. I am a great reader of the room. I am a great noticer. This is for everyone else. Well, maybe you got this self-awareness thing, or maybe you don't have this self-awareness thing. Researcher Tasha Eurich and her team researched over 5,000 people over 10 separate occasions. They also studied almost 800 research studies to see what previous researchers had said about self-awareness and how they had defined it. And what they found was that only 10 to 15% of us have the attributes for self-awareness. I know. This includes things like being able to predict how someone will react, their perspective on a topic, reading their body language, reacting to that body language, like monkeys let loose in the middle of a basketball game. Stanford professor Barbara Tversky wrote a book called Mind in Motion. In it, she says that yes, words help us with observation and understanding, but it's really gestures and actions we remember. For instance, if you're trying to remember someone's name, what we tend to do is this person in the pink shirt. But that's not how our brain actually remembers. What our brain remembers is faces and gestures. So what we really should be saying is this person with the wide smile. Because pink shirt and what shoes you're wearing and where you work have nothing to do with you. And then you change clothes and I can't remember you because you're not wearing the same thing you wore yesterday. When we see things about people, we understand them more. When we watch someone, our mirror neurons fire. When we watch them, we're able to get inside their action. If basketball players, scouts, and coaches all watch a game, it's the basketball players who have the best chance of predicting the outcome because they've been there, done the action, and so their mirror neurons fire. When we talk to someone, we share attention. When you talk to me and I look at you, we have what's called joint attention. When you look at me, if I don't look at you, We're not in sync, and our mirror neurons don't fire. If you're looking at me and I'm looking everywhere else and doing something else, you're probably going to say, are you paying attention to me? Are you reading me? How can you read me? You're not even paying attention to me. A partner's glance at the door tells us it's time to leave. Have you been there? We react because our mirror neurons fire. Every parent in this room has given their child a look or a gesture, and that child stops in their tracks. Words are ancient. Action is ancient. When you have words and actions, you remember things more. This is one reason Zoom is so frustrating, because there's a lot of talking and not a lot of gesturing. So I don't know if I have that shared attention with you, because half the time, if it's a big meeting, people have their cameras off, and I can't tell if you're paying attention to me. But even if you have your camera on, how do I know you're not just watching yourself? It's hard to tell if we have that shared attention. I knew this guy at work. He was very successful, except he had alienated pretty much everyone in his office. When they invited him to lunch, he would always turn them down. He preferred to spend lunch recharging and running errands. When he was on the subway and he saw his coworkers, and you know it was rush hour and they were pressed up against each other with only a foot apart, he would ignore them. What was his reason? He was shy. So shy, he was in a state of paralysis. But what ended up happening was that his coworkers didn't feel close to him. And when it came time to pick teams, they recoiled from him because they felt he had slighted them when he ignored them on the Starbucks line or on the train. And eventually, he was let go. This is where what I call social spy could have come in. We all people watch. Don't pretend you don't do it. We all overhear people in restaurants and listen to what they have to say. Yeah, that's true. You got it. We listen to people. There is a social media page called Overheard in New York. Their Instagram has 1.6 million followers. Half this room probably follows them. And if you don't, you're missing out. Spy is like that, except it's watching with intention, to understand someone's norms, their preferences, and then to take that into account when you interact with them. We all want to figure people out, right? Spy is watching them with the mission of understanding their gestures and their intentions. It's not just about observing, though. It's about predicting. How will the person across from you react? What do they care about? Your boss, when you give them information, how do they like you to give information? That friend you're excited to spend the weekend with, what do they really care about? Don't worry, they've made up a story about you too. Oh, we all do it. If we spend a lot of time with someone, we make up a story about them. Back to the guy at work. Not only could he have spied and learned the social norms of this particular workplace, which was full of coworkers who wanted to feel close-knit, but the boss could have spied. His coworkers could have spied and found out who he really was. A shy person. What would you do if someone talked to you on the train? At the University of Chicago, they did an experiment where they made the thesis that If you talk to people on the train, people wouldn't talk back. But what they found was that 90% of the time, people were happy to chat. We make assumptions that we know how people will react. But the train experiment proves it's not true. People are happy to chat on the train. It's our assumptions that keep us apart. Think of this man at work. What would have been different if everyone had spied? The boss, the coworkers, the man. What would have been different? I know, some of you are thinking, this is obvious. That spy is obvious. But the monkey experiment proves we're not doing it. According to Tasha Sturrock's research, only 7 out of 10 of us, 10 to 15%, is actually noticing, spying, observing. And you may think this is obvious, but look around you. If it's only 7 out of 10, then it's improbable that it's you. Don't worry, if it's only 10 to 15%, I am probably not doing it either. But the good news is that self-awareness is a skill that you can develop. And if you are feeling baffled by people and situations, you don't have to stay baffled. Spy is watching people with intention. It's not about watching people globally. If you say the wrong thing at the wrong time and your jokes don't land, chances are you need to do a little spying. If you want to stop saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, then you need to spy and understand someone's mood. What are their pet peeves? What do they like to talk about? And how do they like to talk about it? Are they data-driven? Do they like to joke? What do they not talk about? Because we spy, we're able to understand and learn that information. We can watch and see how people react, what they talk about, what do they pay attention to. If you're a new kid at school, you can spy on other kids with similar interests to you and find out what clubs do they join, what do they talk about, what are the social norms of being a kid or teenager at that school. With your boss, if you're presenting to them, you can spy and find out what they care about and how they want to hear that information. That friend you're excited to spend the weekend with, maybe they're an introvert and they would hate the idea of a crowded bar. But maybe they're a people pleaser and they're not going to tell you that. You spy to find out the things that people don't tell you. So back to the monkeys and the basketball. What would you do? Would you be able to continue counting those passes, or would you forget everything else for the monkeys? Counting monkeys and basketballs is kind of like being in any social situation. There is a ton going on. Maybe you're the kind of person who's able to continue counting those passes. Maybe you would get lost and forget and focus on the monkeys. Neither is right or wrong. But in social situations, we're all better off if we know whether we are the kind of person who counts the monkeys or who counts the passes or focuses on the basketballs. When we have that awareness and we go into our next social situation, we're able to step back and take it all in because we have the awareness of what we tend to pay attention to. And it means we're all better off. Thank you.